Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma Lefebvre, and today I am starting a brand new series. And you might want to say it's kind of an emotional series because my whole goal is to find the joy that I feel like I have lost with watercolor. Now, before I continue, I do want to preface that I am so blessed with the fact that I was able to turn my passion, my hobby, into a career, and I am so grateful every day that this is what I get to do for a living. I get to create, I get to connect with so many incredible artists and people like you, and then I also get to be home with my kids. But I'd be lying if I said that turning my passion into a career didn't come with its ups and downs. And right now, I am feeling a lot of downs. Now, the purpose of this series is not to complain about my job whatsoever, but I do love to be transparent and real with you guys. And I am finding the struggle to keep up with creating content that is well received and liked, while also playing this algorithm game with YouTube, and then also trying to find the joy that I once had for painting for myself. Oh, and then also, working enough to provide for my family. This balancing act has kind of got me in a bit of a bind where I have found that I've lost a bit of the joy. So, because I love being so honest with you guys, I've decided to start a series where I am trying to find the joy that I once had for watercolor. And that brings me to today's video, the first one, because I was sitting in my office thinking, you know what, I gotta figure this out. I gotta find the joy I once had. Who is the watercolor joy maker? And the first person that jumped in my head, Christy Rice. Like, she is it. So I reached out to Christy, told her what I was going through, and asked if she would kind of guide me through her process of what she paints when she just doesn't feel motivated or she's going through something. And we ended up having an amazing conversation, and I actually got a lot from her. So instead of me chatting more about it, I'm going to jump right into the video and show you this amazing interaction and guided lesson through Christy. So let's jump in.
I'm excited to be here.
I
This is
know
like
we're
the
gonna paint
best fun.
together. Yeah, so
Finally.
you are the joy maker of watercolor. You were the first person that popped in my head when I was like, I need to find the joy in watercolor. Who can I call? Christy. So that's what you're doing here today. I need you to help me fall in love with watercolor again. And I think your style and your approach to watercolor is absolutely perfect for that. I want to see kind of what your go-to is when you're feeling maybe unmotivated or you just want to paint for fun, because I don't know if I have that for myself. I think flowers are my thing, but then I get too in my head. I don't know, but I just kind of want to expand my horizons with watercolor and try something I haven't tried before and just get Christified. So making up new
Oh
words
my
here.
gosh.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to express how much I love that. That's hysterical. So there's like two things that I do, and it really depends on the kind of stress that I'm under,
Yeah.
you know? So like if I'm feeling very, like you just said, I need something fun, I'm maybe stuck in my head, I will do this first type, and I'm just going to dive in,
Yeah.
okay? Because that's sometimes what you just got to do when you're,
Hmm.
especially when you're feeling the way that you described. So I will just like, I'm very much about getting, as I clean my brush, very much about getting paint on the paper as fast as possible when I'm feeling unmotivated, when I'm feeling like there's a creative block kind of hanging over my head. I realize, and it's a habit I've built, a habit of being extremely creatively self-aware, if you will. And I have found that when I let those feelings overtake me and prevent me from getting paint on the paper for too long, that's when things get really concerning,
Yeah, for
as an
sure.
artist. So this particular approach is extremely immediate, and it allows me to get into the painting without very much thought at all beyond making sure my brush is semi clean and that my palette is sprayed down, and that's about it. So this is kind of like a herringbone type of situation
Hmm.
where I'm using my flat wash brush and but if you don't have a flat wash brush, like use your biggest brush. I don't care if it's flat or not. Your marks will look a little different. You know what I mean? For example, like I'll go ahead and grab like my big 12 rounds and just make some of the same marks. Like just use the side of it. Hi, add
Hmm.
more water though. Use the side of it. You know what I mean? Like don't get hung up. Don't get hung up because and that's the other thing when you're in this state of mind,
Hmm.
it is so easy to get hung up on the minutia, if
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, oh well, you're gonna find your brain is gonna find any excuse not to put brush to paper.
I
I'm
feel
telling
like
you.
for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, one thing that comes to mind is I don't want to waste paper and make
Mm,
crap. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe I shouldn't do this. I don't want to waste supplies. Supplies are precious to so many of us.
yeah.
And, we worry that maybe if I just paint and add it to paper, is it going to make me feel better or is it going to make me feel, like this isn't good enough? I think it's the getting in your head and trying to create something that you like and are proud of, but also just trying to get into the groove of enjoying the process.
That is such a valid concern. It is a statement that I hear from folks almost every day
Hmm.
that there's you only feel like worthy enough coming to your paper when your brain's in the right place, when you're feeling fully inspired, when everything in your painting space is tidy and put together, like all the reasons, right? And one of the biggest reasons is, gosh, I don't have unlimited resources. I don't want to waste, quote unquote,
Hmm.
waste my paper. But the thing is, and I will tell you this as a professional artist, as a personal artist that's been making art passionately for most of the time since I was 6 years old. um, I don't ever feel I'm pausing because I'm trying to remember a time, and maybe this is the gift that I've been blessed with. We all have our gifts. We all have like our superpowers, I believe.
Hmm.
And I sometimes feel like my superpower is that I don't recall ever feeling like I wasted my art supplies. And I know there's going to be some out there just like, well, good for you. Yes. But I think it's because as a young child, I'm just going to be frank. My parents I had a never ending, you know, collection of art supplies. Like they weren't the best quality, but I always had it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so I think I built habits because of that circumstance as a child. Then as an adult, and friends, this doesn't require a lot of explanation, but you see what I'm doing here. I'm picking a color, I'm doing a stroke, I'm rinsing my brush and repeat,
Hmm.
right? There's no symmetry, there's no balance, like none. So, and then as I grew up and started investing in better supplies, I had already established that kind of free spirit, just have at it type of attitude. And probably to my parents' chagrin, they probably were like, oh, can you stop using the arches at that rate? You know what I mean? Because they still
Yeah.
continue to buy me what my art teacher said was the best. Again, I was blessed with that privilege and whatnot, but I never had that feeling in my body that what I was doing was a waste. There was no morality put on the quality of my brushstrokes, the quality of my technique. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's why I feel like I'm literally doing the work I was meant, like my soul's work out here in watercolor land, because I was gifted with that. So, what I tell people is that you need to build new habits to combat those feelings of inadequacy, to give yourself permission when you feel least like you deserve it, to use the good stuff, to use the supplies at all. And it truly is a habit. It's a habit. And I talk about the dichotomy of like we're doing this art to feel good, to have joy, to relax, but you're telling me, Christy, I have to now build habits. Like, I already worry about like not exercising enough. That habit plagues me. So now I have to build an art habit. Come on now. But it's true. It is true. You have to shift your thinking. And so the best way to do that, number one, I say, is to use your supplies to their fullest
Mm-hmm.
until every square inch of a sheet is covered. If you are truly worried about, and it stresses you out that you're wasting your supplies. So one of the best things you can do is just start using the backs of your paper.
Mm-hmm.
And just that act alone will start to shift your thinking about waste, so to speak.
So what would you do with a piece like this after it's done? After just kind of playing and practicing, what would it just end up in a pile of papers, or do you repurpose it? What do you do?
I do. Yeah. So I collect all of my artwork in a little bin next to my desk for as long as I can until that's overflowing. And then I have drawers, like these pull out drawer rolling cart thingies. And I have a drawer that's for artwork just like this, just kind of abstract, my crazy, weird stuff that I do. And honestly, I cannot tell you how many times I've used this. So one of the things that I do, you can journal on top of this
Mm-hmm.
after you're done. Like you can literally do some emotion mapping. I don't know what it's called, but sometimes it's what I call it. Like you can just journal in the white spaces, like joy, you can make little notes like today I'm feeling, whatever. Now this may be a real struggle for some, because then you're literally turning this into a page that you could never, quote, do anything with, because it's like your personal journal. So the other thing that you can do is cut it up, use it for, I do this a lot. I have never, I can't, well, not never, but I don't remember the last time that I bought a gift tag.
Yeah. Same.
Seriously.
Same. I usually do the same. Yep.
Yeah. So like I will sometimes rip them up. So I like that torn edge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always sending out little packages to folks in my community. I will like use them as like flat notes. You could cut this into 6 parts and have the prettiest flat note there ever was.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the other thing I do is I do sometimes do collage. And so I will cut this up, make like leaf shapes. I'm just going to, for the sake of example, I might make an outline in an area that I think is super interesting, like a leaf shape. And I'm literally intersecting so many parts of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would cut that out. And like, it's this really cool, like weirdo mod leaf,
Well, I
that
think
I
that's
could,
like your newest book. Was it your most recent one
yeah,
that
yeah,
you sent me? I love that. So even
yeah.
just like kind of coming up with a collection, I like the idea of maybe like a watercolor journal just for your own type of therapy. I think that's my problem as a creator, is that I focus so much of my time on creating videos for YouTube that I forget to paint for myself, or I have no time to paint for myself, or the fact that when I'm working, I'm painting all day. It doesn't almost seem like it's a relaxing thing to do at the end of the day. Do you ever feel like you're all painted out and you're like, I don't want to do this for me right now. I had to do this video, this video, this video. And you're just like, does it still bring me joy like it used to? Because that's where I'm struggling at the moment. We're just trying to find painting for me, but also finding a purpose in it that's not work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you a quick story. And it speaks to that exactly. So in 2013, I'm just going to keep doodling here, but in 2013, in my other business, we did wedding invitations. My team did a massive event for a very famous person.
Ooh.
And and it was just one of those all-encompassing type projects. We were bringing in freelancers. Literally, the client was flying some of our team to get stuff to the wedding location 2 hours quicker than UPS could. I only tell that part of the story so people understand just how intense this was. And in my other business, what we do is all built around artwork. Like clients come to us to commission artwork from our team, from myself, and I have other artists on my team. And we literally are like on demand art creators. Like it's not for us. It's never for us. It's always for someone else. So for the better part of a year, I was completely immersed in creating artwork, designs, watercolor paintings, really labor intensive illustrations for someone else
Mhm.
in a way and with an intensity that I had never experienced before. So when that was all over and it was great success and blah blah blah, I was completely creatively spent. Completely.
Yeah.
I went into like a 3 month where I period of time where I touched no paint, no paper. Like my team did everything. Like I actually got like I think I was depressed.
Yeah.
And because I just didn't know how to create anymore without someone telling me what to create. I all of the creative lifeblood had been sucked out of me. And this isn't me like talking smack about that client. This was just a circumstance of such an intense creative period that was governed by someone else. Very much like you said, you know, when you're a YouTuber, you're creating for the algorithm, you're creating for your community.
Mhm.
It's not always about you. So one of the things that I did that happened that kind of pulled me out of that phase is that I started putting art supplies and setting up spaces to create art in the places in my home that I was most comfortable.
Mhm.
And I know that sounds super weird, but like I love TV. I watch a lot of TV. I don't feel ashamed for it. I used to. It's like something that clears my brain. And so I there's a particular spot in our living room where I spend a lot of time. And so I set up like a little folding table there that I kept there. It was before we had children. And you know, they would knock things down. And I had that set up in a little palette and some paper, and it was just there for me. And that just having that proximity of supplies in a place that wasn't where I normally create
Mhm.
really changed things for me. Because it was kind of like staring, you know, the first couple of days it was there, I'd be watching a show and I felt like my art supplies were just staring at me,
Yeah.
like goading me, you
Yeah.
know? And then I would pick it up and I would do a little something. And then it just snowballed and I was back and even stronger after I came through that time. So
That's a really
I
interesting way to kind of get going again, because I think even in the intro of this video, I mentioned like my office is starting to make me feel a little bit more claustrophobic. I'm surrounded by all these things that I feel like I need to do. And
yeah,
it's not as, so part of this series that I'm going to do is like finding joy in watercolor. I'm going to try and take it outside, just try and paint
yeah,
somewhere else other than these 3.5 walls. There's a pretty decent door here, but you know what I mean? It gets
yeah,
the mundaneness of just sitting here and doing the same thing over and over again. It's just like, oh, I need to, experiment a bit more. So I like that idea, even just bringing it
yeah,
into the living room. And like when I was a kid, I watched TV all the time as a kid. My mom would work late. And so I'd be home and I would sit in front of the TV and I would draw as a kid
yeah,
for like hours on end. And that
yeah.
was my creative time. And I don't really do that anymore. So I feel like that's a really good
Go
tip of
back to
what I
that.
can, start doing. And also then I can watch my
Yeah.
shows.
I just wanted to say, like, we didn't talk about that point.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, you and I didn't talk about that specific point prior to
Mhm.
this, this recording.
Yeah,
So I just think there's some really I just think that there's a lot of people that were meant to hear what we both just shared.
for
That's all I'm
sure.
going to say about that.
And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also tend to look at us as YouTubers or full-time artists and go, oh, they have it together all the time. They always enjoy painting, or they always, get it right on the first try. And there's so much behind the scenes where you're like, no, I've painted this like 7 times and cursed at it like a billion. I've thrown, I don't know how many pieces in the garbage or done whatever. And there's a lot that they don't see. And that's kind of part of my purpose of the series, is kind of showing people that you're like, no, I'm going through something and I'm trying to find the love for it again, because I don't want to lose that.
No.
Painting is kind of what brought me out of my rut in the first place. And
Right. Okay.
I don't want to lose this. So I need to kind of be proactive and find the joy again. And yeah, so I love what you're doing. I think I'm going to do something like that just for myself, maybe even like 5 minutes in the evening. But I think before the recording, we talked about something with your pencil, graphite, watercolor.
Yes.
I want to try it. Let's do it.
Okay, so this is another um so I mentioned it depends on like my type of stress,
Hmm.
right? This particular technique is something that I started doing during the time that we shall not mention,
Yeah.
the 2020.
Yes.
Um, my wedding business tanked. um, happy to say we're here still and thriving. But I was experiencing a very different kind of stress. It was
Hmm.
very acute. It was um, it wasn't going to be solved as simply as putting brush to paper
Yeah.
calmly and loosely. Yeah. So this particular technique is a way, once you have established it's the way of doing it,
Hmm.
it's a way for you to get into that. I call it the joy zone. Um, Traditionally, it's called flow state, where you get to a point where you're in such intensive focus that the world just melts away. Um, and so, yeah. So this is a combination of watercolor and pencil.
Okay.
I use a softer pencil. This is a 2B jumbo,
I got a
which I
2B.
love because it gives you a little less control, which is fun. But I just any soft pencil. I also have here. I think this is an 8B, so I'm going to have that one as well. I do try to keep a little baby sharpener close by when I'm doing this, especially if I'm doing this for stress relief.
Hmm.
And so I would just suggest painting a flower that you're super comfortable with, or a subject matter that you're super comfortable with. For me, floral is kind of my go-to, and so
Same.
yeah, I'm using this number 12 round, and I'm just going wet on dry first, but very juicy. The color is very juicy, which in Christie land, juicy is a lot of pigment and just a little bit less water than pigment on the brush. And like letting some of the wild stuff happen. I'm even going to bring in some of my famed fluorescent craziness here. And I'm just building kind of this side view flower. I'm going to do a little bit of a stem just so you have some visual reference of what the heck is going on here. um, and it really isn't about the what that you're painting with this. It's just about doing something you're super comfortable with.
Hmm.
Okay. And then while it's still very wet, I want you to then think about where the intersections are of your petals. And I want you to start carving out the shadows with your graphite into the wet watercolor.
Mm.
And believe it or not, the graphite kind of melts into the watercolor, and it, first and foremost, the sensory experience of this, I personally find extremely relaxing. It has like a velvety feel when you run graphite, a soft graphite, through wet watercolor.
Mm.
I have found personally for that to feel very, very relaxing.
Yeah, it's
But then,
different.
yeah. Oh, you're doing it. Yay. Yeah. And then you just sink into the act of trying to build your flower, trying to take your flower, and I'm just going to keep saying flower and not feel bad about it because that's what we're painting, but to kind of carve out the shape and the dimension of your flower. Like
Interesting.
focus on that. I'm going to go in here and go into, and if your page starts getting dry, add some
Mhm.
water to it.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely feels smoother to work on. It's not as like
Yeah.
scratchy.
Exactly. It kind of melts it, and
Hmm.
then and the other thing I found, during the time that this style really came to me and became a go-to, is that I was feeling a little darker, obviously,
Hmm.
and this style tends to be quite moody just by the nature of the fact that you're, um, you're putting graphite over top of watercolor and really kind of graying out all of the colors that you
Hmm.
are laying down. But I find that to be just really lovely, even when now I go to it, even when I'm not necessarily feeling dark emotionally, I just like the look. It's great for fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an
Um,
interesting way to add the shadows in without, necessarily blending them out with watercolor. I feel like
yep.
I definitely need to dabble a bit more with, or mixed media just to kind
Oh,
of
I
play
love
around
mixed
and see
media.
what it can do.
Yes, I would recommend it. I'm a big fan of mixed media. I kind of fell into it just honestly as a teenager and even into my 20s because I was such a rule breaker and I almost had this like refusal to follow the rules. I was stumbling a lot, especially with
Mhm.
watercolor. So I stumbled into mixed media as ways to kind of bring back my whites and
Mhm.
correct a lot of the mistakes that I was making
Mhm.
because I was like so bold and brazen as a young artist. Um, but it kind of carried on with me and became part of my style. So I do adore mixed media. So yeah, you're just continuing to build those shadows. And is the point to have a realistic flower? No, this is not a realistic flower.
Yeah,
The point is just to get into the process of kind of building shadow and just the relaxing, there is a sensory component to this, the way
for
that
sure.
the paint and the wet and the moisture feels under hands with the pencil. And there is a little bit of ASMR too.
Hmm.
And that can be very soothing, even if you like think ASMR videos in general
Oh,
are cringy.
so
It can
cringy.
yeah, it can be very impactful though when you're by yourself and it's something you may not even realize or even think to call like, "Oh, I'm enjoying this ASMR experience."
Hmm.
But it's just more of a sensory experience.
I love
Um,
ASMR with art supplies. It's the whispering that I can't handle.
oh,
I
and
can't,
that like
and the
when you're like,
tapping.
"I'm
Uh,
gonna touch your face." And I'm
yep,
like, "No,
can't do
stop
that.
it.
I cannot
Stop
do
it."
that. But I love like
Yeah.
the sound of like the water jar, the paint on paper. I love
Yeah.
that. So
Yes.
it's like
Fantastic.
so cool because it's like, what flower is that? No idea what I'm
I
doing.
don't know.
No
Does it
idea.
matter? Nope.
No. But I think I put too much pressure on myself. I think that is a lot of it for me is that I find I don't feel the pressure from the audience necessarily because I feel like,
Yep.
especially
No.
we have such a great, incredible community of people that no
Mhm.
one's really putting the pressure on us. But I feel like if I call myself a professional, I got to do it like this. I got to make sure people are like it. And then just like kind of trying to keep up with the algorithm is just another thing as a YouTuber. You're like, oh my gosh, like, if things don't get views, is it not good enough? Is
Yep.
it, and you just try to stay
Yeah.
relevant. And it is so hard sometimes to not be down on yourself and not want to paint just because you're scared of some sort of outcome. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important that you're sharing this with your audience because they're going to come back. I know what this comment section is going to look like. They're going to be like, you could like paint a moldy piece of fruit and I'm still going to watch you,
oh, for
Emma.
sure. They're
Like,
so,
seriously.
I know. I don't know where it comes from, this
It's the
feeling of inadequacy.
algorithm.
Yeah.
It's the algorithm. It makes us question ourselves. But to be aware of it is so huge and to have um some go-tos, some tactics in
Mhm.
place to be ready to fight back all of the junk that comes is what's important.
I
So
haven't
fun.
painted something that I've enjoyed in a while. Like, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
This is really pretty.
It is. Yours is so gorgeous. Those purples are ridiculous.
Right? I'm really loving like the purple and the ultramarine right now.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah. It's a
so
great combo.
like it's so pretty. Like, what am I thinking? See, I just need to also surround myself with fellow artists like you because it's just so inspirational when you're, talking to people who get you and have the same interests.
Yes.
It's just so much fun. So I'm
Yeah,
glad you
YouTube
were.
can feel like a vacuum, like it can be very lonely.
Yes.
I don't, when I tell people what I do, and I have it a little easier because I've had an established business for 20 years, but even
Mhm.
then people are like, you do what? You make videos and invitations? Like what?
Yeah.
You know? So it can be very lonely because sometimes even your family and friends don't get it, you
Hmm.
know, don't get what you do. So that's why we love our community so much here.
Exactly. And I love that I know both you and I are just building more of a community with other artists here on YouTube. And it's just like, it's
Yes.
so nice to just kind of hang out and talk. And you just realize you have so much in common with
Oh,
just life and struggles and just trying to figure it all out. And it's just so comforting to know that there's someone else that kind of gets it. So
absolutely.
I love this.
Absolutely.
This is so pretty.
It's gorgeous.
I
Dang, girl.
right? But that's something
I'm
I would never
inspired by
paint,
you.
right? I would never paint this before. I would never even think to
Inspired by
paint
you,
this,
so I'm going purple here.
right?
It's really fun. So the point with this, just to kind of reiterate with the pencil and watercolor, is just to keep the texture on the page super juicy with pigment, paint, and water, and then just drag that pencil through it. Because that's the other thing that I really found that I loved with this technique is that I found out that I could drag. I'm going to try to show you in a
Mm-hmm.
better, bigger way. I'm just going to do like a mess up here. That you can drag that pencil through, and you could even wet your pencil. I just did it. And you can drag color
Oh,
through, and like hopefully you can see that. Like
I
it's
also
really
like how you did like just the pencil outlines. I'm dipping my pencil in my water
dip your
and
pencil
like do
in
like
water.
a, extra little
Yeah.
petal here and
It's
there.
so fun. So like think about how, that
Ooh.
could turn into a leaf, and
Mm-hmm.
just to really play around with this technique, just experimenting with this technique
Yep.
alone is really exciting. I don't know what's happening in my paper right there. That's really weird. Anywho, it don't matter. It don't matter. Dip your pencil in some paint, which is what I just did. That's
Oh,
kind of ridiculous. Love that.
go for it.
Yeah, why not?
I love it.
My art teacher growing up, her name was Sue Hand, and she always told me, she was just like, she would like marvel at the fact that I was just fearless. And that's what
Hmm.
she would say about me. She's like, it doesn't matter if she's like, Christy, you would do anything I would throw at you. She's like, you wouldn't always do it the best as anyone else. And like, yeah, of course not. But I would just throw my whole soul into something. And
Hmm.
again, it was my superpower. I didn't have the self-consciousness. Um, and I had self-consciousness in a lot of other areas of my life. So
Hmm.
I'm grateful for that superpower. But yeah, she was like, she would always say, and she lives in the town I live in now. Like, and so I talked to her, and she'd just be like, you were my wild child, my fearless one.
I love it. That was awesome. And honestly, I feel like I learned so much. And just the fact that we can just chat and, you know, gain inspiration from each other is so huge. And I,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think, YouTubers not compete, but kind of compete against each other. And really, it's so much better of a community than you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is.
there's room enough for all of us, and especially because we're all so different. We teach so differently, and I
Right.
personally love learning from others. Like it's just so much more
Absolutely.
fun and it's so inspiring. So this was awesome. I really love this.
It looks phenomenal. I'm so glad that it kind of struck a chord with you.
Oh my
And
gosh. Leah, I have to thank you so much for joining me. And I feel like, I had a good therapy session right now, art therapy with you.
yeah, yeah.
Now I actually want to paint and try new things. I want to put a show on or put some music on and just have her. But yeah, so thanks so much for like joining me today. I honestly will have
Oh,
to do
thank
this
you for
again. And
having me.
obviously I'll be on your channel. So I'm excited. But yeah, so
Yes.
thanks again. And I think that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it. I am so thrilled with how my painting turned out. I feel like I gained so much from that session with Christy. It was a bit of art therapy, which I feel like I really needed, and I feel committed to finding this joy that I once had. And I'm going to continue this series with, you know, maybe talking to other artists, other people, maybe taking painting outside and just experimenting more and learning how to paint for myself without pressuring myself to, you know, create a masterpiece of content or, you know, a piece of artwork like I always have been. So I really hope you guys are going to join this journey with me. And if you are in a similar boat, whether you're a content creator or you're just a beginning watercolor artist who is in a bit of a rut, I really hope you'll join me because I think this will be great for all of us. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in our next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.